The future of Black activism is not just a question of what comes next. It's a question of survival, of legacy, and of the choices we make right now. In a world that's changing faster than ever, where technology, politics, and culture collide in unpredictable ways, the stakes for Black communities have never been higher. The movements of the past have brought us to this moment, but the path forward is anything but certain. What you need to know before it's too late is that Black activism is evolving, and the decisions we make today will shape not just the next decade, but generations to come. To understand where Black activism is headed, we have to start with where it's been. The story of Black resistance is as old as the story of Black oppression. From the earliest days of slavery, Black people have fought for freedom, dignity, and justice, sometimes in open rebellion, sometimes in quiet defiance, always with a vision for something better. The abolitionists, the freedom fighters, the civil rights leaders, the artists and thinkers who challenged the status quo, they laid the foundation for every movement that followed. But the world they fought in is not the world we live in now. The tools of activism have changed. The battlegrounds have shifted. The enemies are sometimes harder to see, and the victories are often more complicated. In the age of social media, a hashtag can spark a global movement, but it can also be co-opted, diluted, or forgotten in a matter of days. Protests can go viral, but so can misinformation and backlash. The power to organize has never been greater, but neither has the power to surveil, disrupt, and divide. This is the paradox at the heart of modern Black activism: unprecedented visibility, but also unprecedented vulnerability. The world is watching, but so are those who would rather see us fail. Every action, every word, every misstep is amplified, scrutinized, and sometimes weaponized. The pressure to be perfect, to represent the entire community, to never make a mistake, it's a weight that can crush even the most committed activists. Yet, despite these challenges, Black activism is more vibrant, creative, and necessary than ever. The issues are urgent: police violence, mass incarceration, economic inequality, voter suppression, environmental racism, health disparities, and more. The old systems of oppression have not disappeared, they've adapted, and so must we. One of the most important shifts in Black activism is the move from charismatic, singular leaders to decentralized, collective action. The days of waiting for a new Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X are over. Today's movements are led by networks of organizers, many of them young, queer, and women, who understand that real change comes from the ground up. They are building coalitions, sharing power, and creating spaces where everyone's voice matters. This is not just a strategy, it's a survival tactic. When leadership is shared, the movement is harder to silence, harder to co-opt, and harder to destroy. Technology is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it allows activists to connect, organize, and mobilize at a scale that was unimaginable just a generation ago. A video of injustice can spark outrage and action around the world in minutes. Online petitions, crowdfunding, and digital organizing have become essential tools. But technology also brings new risks: surveillance, doxing, hacking, and the spread of disinformation. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to use these tools wisely, to protect ourselves and our communities, and to stay one step ahead of those who would use technology against us. Another key shift is the recognition that Black liberation is inseparable from other struggles for justice. The future of Black activism is intersectional. It's about fighting for Black lives, but also for queer lives, immigrant lives, disabled lives, and the lives of all those who are marginalized by systems of power. This is not just about solidarity, it's about survival. The forces that oppress us are interconnected, and so must be our resistance. But intersectionality is not just a buzzword, it's a challenge. It means confronting the ways that our own communities can perpetuate harm: sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. It means listening to those whose voices have been silenced and making space for leadership that looks different from what we're used to. The future of Black activism will be more inclusive, or it will not survive. The fight for justice is also a fight for imagination. The future of Black activism depends on our ability to dream bigger, to envision a world that does not yet exist. This means moving beyond demands for reform toward demands for transformation. It means asking not just for better policing, but for new systems of safety and care. Not just for more representation, but for real power. Not just for survival, but for joy, abundance, and freedom. This is the work that lies ahead. It will not be easy. The forces arrayed against us are powerful, and the path forward is uncertain. But the future is not yet written. What you need to know before it's too late is that the choices we make now about how we organize, who we listen to, what we demand, will shape the world our children inherit.
The urgency of this moment cannot be overstated. In 2025, the world is at a crossroads, and so is Black activism. The lessons of the past are clear. Progress is never given, it is won. Every right, every freedom, every inch of justice has been fought for, often at great cost. But the future will demand even more from us, more creativity, more courage, more willingness to challenge not just our adversaries, but ourselves. One of the most striking features of today's activism is its global reach. Black activists are no longer fighting in isolation. Movements in the United States are connected to struggles in Brazil, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and beyond. The language of Black Lives Matter is spoken in dozens of countries, adapted to local contexts, but united by a common vision: dignity, safety, and freedom for all Black people. This global solidarity is a source of strength, but it also brings new challenges. The issues are different in every place, and the solutions must be too. What works in one country may not work in another. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to learn from each other, to share strategies, and to build alliances that cross borders. At the same time, the backlash is real. As Black movements gain power and visibility, those invested in the status quo push back harder. We see it in the rise of authoritarian leaders, in the spread of disinformation, in the tightening of laws meant to suppress protest and dissent. We see it in the way activists are surveilled, harassed, and sometimes even killed. The risks are real, and the cost of speaking out can be high. But history teaches us that backlash is a sign of progress. It means the movement is working, that it is threatening the foundations of injustice. In this environment, self-care and community care are not luxuries, they are necessities. Burnout is real, and the emotional toll of activism can be devastating. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to care for ourselves and each other, to build networks of support, and to create spaces of healing and joy. This means prioritizing mental health, setting boundaries, and recognizing that rest is a form of resistance. It means celebrating victories, no matter how small, and finding ways to sustain hope in the face of setbacks. Another critical shift is the move toward economic justice. For too long, the fight for Black liberation has been separated from the fight for economic power. But in 2025, activists are making the connection clear. True freedom requires not just civil rights, but economic rights. This means fighting for living wages, affordable housing, access to health care, and the right to build wealth. It means challenging the systems that keep Black communities in poverty, from predatory lending to wage theft to discriminatory hiring practices. The future of Black activism will be rooted in the understanding that economic justice is racial justice. Education is another battleground. The stories we tell about ourselves, the history we teach our children, the knowledge we value, these are all sites of struggle. In 2025, activists are fighting to decolonize curricula, to ensure that Black history is taught honestly and fully, and to create schools where every child can thrive. This is not just about representation, it's about power. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to shape the narratives that define our world. Technology will continue to play a double-edged role. On one hand, it offers new tools for organizing, storytelling, and mobilization. On the other, it brings new forms of surveillance, manipulation, and exclusion. The future will belong to those who can harness technology for liberation while defending against its dangers. This means building our own platforms, protecting our data, and demanding accountability from tech companies and governments alike. The climate crisis is another front in the struggle for justice. Black communities are often on the front lines of environmental harm, from polluted neighborhoods to climate disasters. In 2025, activists are connecting the dots between racial justice and environmental justice, demanding solutions that center the needs of the most vulnerable. The future of Black activism will be green, or it will not be at all.
Perhaps most importantly, the future of Black activism will be defined by imagination. The ability to dream of a world beyond the one we have, to envision new systems, new relationships, new ways of being together. This is the radical hope that has always fueled Black resistance. It is what kept enslaved people singing freedom songs, what inspired civil rights marchers to keep walking, what drives today's activists to keep fighting. The future is unwritten, but it is ours to shape. As we look ahead, the question is not whether Black activism will survive, but what form it will take. Will we rise to the challenges of this moment? Will we build movements that are inclusive, resilient, and visionary? Will we dare to imagine a world where Black lives are not just protected, but celebrated? The answers will depend on all of us, on our choices, our courage, and our commitment to justice. The future of Black activism will also be shaped by the stories we tell and the ways we remember. Memory is a powerful tool, one that can be used to inspire, to warn, or to erase. In 2025, activists are more aware than ever of the importance of controlling the narrative. Who gets to write the history books? Who decides which voices are amplified and which are silenced? The answers to these questions will determine not just how we understand the past, but how we imagine the future. Storytelling has always been at the heart of Black resistance. From the spirituals sung in the fields to the poetry of the Harlem Renaissance, from the speeches of civil rights leaders to the viral videos of today, Black people have used words, music, and images to bear witness, to build community, and to demand change. In a digital age, the tools of storytelling have multiplied, but so have the challenges. Misinformation spreads quickly, and the line between truth and fiction can blur. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to tell our own stories, to document our struggles and our victories, and to pass on the lessons we've learned. This is especially important for young people. The next generation of activists is already here, and they are watching, listening, and learning. They are growing up in a world where information is everywhere, but wisdom is harder to find. They need role models, mentors, and guides who can help them navigate the complexities of activism in the 21st century. The future of Black activism will depend on our willingness to invest in young leaders, to share our knowledge, and to trust them to carry the movement forward in new and unexpected ways. Mentorship is not just about teaching tactics or strategies, it's about sharing values, building confidence, and creating a sense of belonging. It's about helping young people see themselves as part of a long tradition of resistance and resilience. In 2025, this means creating spaces where young activists can learn from elders, but also where elders can learn from the young. The future will belong to those who can bridge the generational divide, who can honor the past while embracing the possibilities of the present. Another key element of the future is coalition building. The most successful movements are those that bring together people from different backgrounds with different skills and perspectives, united by a common goal. In 2025, Black activists are forging alliances with Indigenous communities, with Latinx and Asian American organizers, with LGBTQ+ advocates, with labor unions, and with environmentalists.
These coalitions are not always easy. There are differences to navigate, conflicts to resolve, and trust to build, but they are essential. The forces we are up against are powerful and interconnected. Our resistance must be too. Coalition building also means reaching out beyond the usual circles. It means engaging with people who may not see themselves as activists, but who are affected by the same systems of oppression. It means finding common ground with those who may not agree on everything, but who share a commitment to justice and dignity. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to build broad, inclusive movements that can withstand division and co-optation. At the same time, we must be vigilant against the dangers of respectability politics and gatekeeping. Too often, movements have been weakened by internal divisions, by debates over who is qualified to lead, who is respectable enough to represent the cause, who is radical enough to be taken seriously. These debates are not new, but in the age of social media, they can be especially destructive. The future of Black activism will require us to move beyond these old patterns, to recognize that there is no single way to resist, no single path to liberation. This means making space for a diversity of tactics and approaches. Some will march in the streets, others will lobby lawmakers, others will create art or build businesses or teach in classrooms. All of these forms of activism are valid and all are necessary. The future will belong to those who can see the value in every contribution, who can build movements that are flexible, adaptive, and resilient. The role of art and culture cannot be overstated. In 2025, Black artists, musicians, writers, and filmmakers are at the forefront of the movement, using their talents to inspire, to provoke, and to imagine new possibilities. Art has the power to reach people in ways that facts and arguments cannot. It can open hearts, change minds, and create a sense of shared purpose. The future of Black activism will be creative, expressive, and unapologetically bold. As we look to the future, we must also remember that the struggle for justice is not a sprint, but a marathon. There will be setbacks, disappointments, and defeats. There will be moments when the odds seem insurmountable, when hope feels out of reach. But history teaches us that even in the darkest times, resistance is possible. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to keep going, to find strength in community, and to believe in the possibility of change.
The future of Black activism will also be defined by how we respond to the ever-changing landscape of politics and policy. In 2025, the political climate is volatile, with new threats and opportunities emerging almost daily. Laws are passed and repealed, rights are won and lost, and the balance of power can shift in an instant. Activists must be nimble, ready to adapt strategies and tactics as circumstances change. This means staying informed, building relationships with allies in government, and being prepared to mobilize quickly when the moment demands it. But policy change is only one part of the equation. The deeper work is cultural, changing hearts and minds, shifting the values that shape our society. This is slow, often invisible work, but it is essential. The future of Black activism will depend on our ability to move beyond short-term wins and to build a culture of justice, equity, and inclusion that can withstand political backlash. This means investing in education, in storytelling, in the arts, and in the everyday conversations that happen around kitchen tables and in community centers. One of the most powerful tools for cultural change is the power of example. When people see Black leaders succeeding in every field, from politics to business to science to the arts, it challenges stereotypes and expands the realm of what is possible. Representation matters, but it is not enough. The future of Black activism will require us to move beyond tokenism, to ensure that Black people have real power, real resources, and real opportunities to shape the world. This also means holding our own institutions accountable. Too often, organizations that claim to stand for justice fall short in practice. They may talk about diversity and inclusion, but fail to address the deeper issues of power and privilege. The future of Black activism will depend on our willingness to demand accountability, not just from our adversaries, but from our allies and ourselves. This is hard work, but it is necessary if we are to build movements that are truly just and sustainable. The role of faith and spirituality will continue to be important. For many, activism is not just a political commitment, but a spiritual one, a calling to serve, to heal, to repair the world. In 2025, Black churches, mosques, and other faith communities remain vital centers of resistance and hope. They provide not just moral guidance, but practical support, food, shelter, counseling, and community. The future of Black activism will be rooted in these traditions, drawing strength from the wisdom of ancestors and the power of collective faith. At the same time, the movement must be open to new forms of spirituality and meaning-making. Young people are forging their own paths, blending traditions and creating new rituals that speak to their experiences. The future will belong to those who can honor the past while embracing the new, who can find common ground and shared values even when beliefs differ. The question of safety will also be central. In a world where activists are targeted by surveillance, harassment, and violence, protecting ourselves and our communities is a matter of survival. This means developing new strategies for digital security, for physical safety, and for emotional resilience. It means building networks of mutual aid, where people look out for each other and share resources in times of need. The future of Black activism will be as much about care as it is about confrontation. Economic empowerment will remain a key focus. In 2025, the wealth gap between Black and white families is still vast, and economic inequality remains a root cause of many other injustices. Activists are pushing for policies that address these disparities: universal basic income, reparations, access to capital, and support for Black-owned businesses. But they are also building their own solutions: cooperatives, credit unions, investment clubs, and other forms of collective economic power. The future of Black activism will be entrepreneurial, innovative, and determined to create new pathways to prosperity. Finally, the future will be shaped by our ability to imagine and build alternatives. The systems we have inherited are not inevitable. They are the result of choices, and they can be changed. Activists are experimenting with new models of governance, of education, of healthcare, of community safety. They are asking bold questions. What would it look like to live in a world without prisons, without police violence, without poverty? The answers are not always clear, but the act of asking is itself a form of resistance. The future of Black activism is unwritten, but it is full of possibility. It will be shaped by the courage of those who dare to dream, by the wisdom of those who remember, and by the collective power of those who refuse to give up. What you need to know before it's too late is that the future is not something that happens to us, it is something we create, together, every day.